5.08, Evaluación Escrita. This is still in Module 5, Mis Vacaciones, My Vacations. This lesson is just really setting you up and giving you all the instructions for your writing assessment, which is your Evaluación Escrita. Okay, so showing off I'm going to read about it and give you a few pointers, and I'm also going to show you the study guide, kind of the guide I created that'll be posted in your materials section that kind of helps you prepare to write and give you a lot of tips and hints on how to write this assignment. So you've picked up new skills on your voyage this lesson. Also, one thing I want to remind you, if you are watching this before you do 05.04 or before you do 06.04, every module has a rough draft lesson for your writing assessment, and that is lesson 4. So 05.04 is the kind of rough draft version of your writing, and 05.08 is the final draft. Those assignments are very similar. They just have, but the later assignment just usually is adding a couple of requirements. So if you do a really good 05.04, then you can use that to in 05.08, and you just have to add a couple of new requirements, and you've done the bulk of your work back in the earlier assignment. So I really encourage you to try to really follow the instructions and get all the requirements in for that earlier assignment, 05.04, and then use that to just fill in the bulk of your 05.08 and just add those two requirements. So just a side note and a reminder, especially for next module, Module 6 is good. It's the same kind of format for those two assignments as well. So, all right, you've picked up a lot of new skills on your voyage through this lesson. You learned how to use verbs in the imperfect tense and the preterite tense, how to use hace plus time frame plus que plus verb, which is that one about how to express like when you did things a while ago, like 2 years ago I went to the store, or 2 years ago I went to Spain, or something like that. How to use por and para, how to use conmigo and contigo, it's with me, with you, and how to use chameleon verbs. That was in 05.07. We learned about chameleon verbs. Your luggage is now packed with all the skills you gained. In this assessment, your written skills will be evaluated. For the written assessment, you will add to the rough draft that you submitted in the writing workshop from this module, which is 05.04, and write the final draft of your article about a past trip. So you will submit your paragraph in the assessment section, and then please review these instructions. So if you pay attention and you look at the requirements, you need to know the requirements. You can always open this rubric to see how you're graded. And then there's always a student example, but I also post this student example in the little note guide, the guide that I created for y'all. So I'll show you that in a minute. So you're going to start with your rough draft. That means you start with the draft that you did in 05.04. And it says include all the requirements from your rough draft based on the rubric. So all those requirements from 05.04. And then make sure you read my comments and the suggestions I gave you back in that assessment. Okay, so apply all that feedback that I gave you. And then your third requirement is to add, your third instruction is to add the new stuff. You add a title to your article, so that's very easy. You just going to need to add a original title in Spanish to your article. So, I mean, if you're talking about your trip to Spain, you can, purely put Mi viaje a España, as your title. Then you need to use a verb that changes its meaning in the preterite and imperfect tenses. This is a chameleon verb. And we talked about those in 05.07. So if you need a review of those, that is where all that content is in 05.07. And if you have questions about those, please just let me know. And then also use complete sentences in Spanish. And please use punctuation. Don't submit a paragraph that is just one really, really long run-on sentence. Just figure out your pauses, your natural pauses in your paragraph, and put some punctuation there, whatever is applicable. All right, so then you're going to finalize your rough draft, proofread your final article, correct spelling and grammar errors, save your final draft, and submit the final draft in the assessments area. So that is really the meat and the bones of 05.08. I'll just make sure there's nothing else behind here. I think it just tells you to submit. So now it's time to submit. So this guide is going to be posted in your in the materials section of your in your materials section, where all your lessons, assignments, where you find all that those links to go to your lessons and assignments and everything. So this is just the requirements again at the top of the guide. This is also what you'll see when you're getting graded from me in the comments under your submission. So I usually put this in there and I mark it with an X if you've met the requirement and an M if you're missing. So if you miss one, I'll usually put what it is, which one it is, and then you can go back and edit that, or ask me for help if you need help adding that in, or if you don't understand what to add. So let me pause for a second. I need to correct something. Make sure it's still going. Okay, so I was talking about the requirements. I usually post them all right here. Let me move this over here. I usually post them all right here, just so that you can keep an eye on the requirements yourself. To get this, there we go. Keep an eye on the requirements yourself, and you can always check them off as you include them. When you have, this is the guide that I created to kind of help you. First, you need to add an original title to your article. Like I said, this is like an easy addition. Just think of something original. Like in the example, they used Mi viaje a Trujillo, Honduras. So, that you can do it something as simple as that. Okay. You need to, these are the exact same requirement. Most of these are exact same requirements as 05.04. So I probably won't go through a ton of these because you can always, you should be using that draft from 05.04 for this. So you should have a lot of these from that draft. But I'll just talk about them. You need to talk about where you went and how long you traveled. This is when you're going to use hace plus specific time frame plus que plus verb. So an example is hace una semana que fui de vacaciones a Trujillo, Honduras, por avión, like by plane. Okay, so your next one is getting ready for the trip. You need to use a car, gar, or zar verb in the preterite or imperfect tense to describe how you planned or prepared for this trip. These verbs, try to make sure you just get one in there. And if you need help with conjugating them or need help just reviewing that information or just how to conjugate verbs in general, just let me know and I'll give you some resources for that. But you can also review the lesson, which I believe is lesson 05.03. But it's in the let me see real quick. I can show you the video. So this is the playlist of all of the videos that I make for all of the lessons and assignments. And your reviewing of car, gar, or zar verbs is in, I believe it's in 05.02. And it might be reviewed also in 05.03. Hace plus time frame plus que plus verb is also in 05.03. So if you ever need to review content and you're not sure, you just like someone to kind of go over it with you, you can always watch any of these videos and get that information. So, and you can always ask me. I'm happy to help you also. Okay, so your next piece is using conmigo. They want you to see that you're using conmigo. And so an example is planifiqué mi viaje con mi madre porque ella iba conmigo. Like she was coming with me. She was going with me. So it's easy enough. You've got to work in conmigo somewhere in your paragraph. You do not have to have a sentence just like that. They just want to see that you are using that new term that you were taught. Your next one is mode of transportation for the trip. They want to know what mode of transportation you used. You can use a stem changing verb in the preterite tense to describe the mode of transportation you used for the trip. So in this example, it said, mi madre prefirió comprar los boletos sin escala. So my mother preferred to buy the tickets. Okay, so then you have your fourth description is the day of the trip. They want to you see using a regular imperfect tense verb to describe what you did the day of the trip. You can use vocabulary to give a better description. Your example is en el aeropuerto yo caminaba mientras cargaba el equipaje de mano. I'm going fast here because I've already done all this in the 05.04 video. The main one I want to get to is this one right here, which is we need to see that you're using a verb that changes its meaning in the preterite and perfect tenses, which is called a chameleon verb. And this is in 06.07 lesson. Again, you can go to this playlist and watch the video about chameleon verbs. And then also you need to work through the lesson on that on 05.07, and you'll get more information about chameleon verbs. So your example is, yo conocía la ciudad de Trujillo porque nací allí. So she's using conocer, which in preterite tense means to meet someone, but in imperfect tense, which is what it's being used as here, it means you like knew something. So she's saying, I knew about the city of Trujillo because I was born there. Okay, so it's the reason it's chameleon is because they kind of have two very different meanings. They're similar meanings, but they're just used very differently. Like if you say I met someone, you would say yo conocí Pedro Vasquez. So like that's I met Pedro Vasquez. I met this man. But if you were talking about knowing a place or knowing about a place or a person, then you're going to say conocía, or the correct verb, the correct form of conocer in the imperfect tense. Imperfect tense is ongoing in the past actions, and preterite is usually is more specific time, very specific actions in the past. Okay, so if you need help reviewing about imperfect and preterite, just let me know. And then also watch the videos that I make for those lessons, because those are helpful as well. And then lastly, we want to see you talking about how long your trip was. So it'd be great if you used para to show how long it took to get to your destination. Para ir a Trujillo. In order to get to Trujillo, el vuelo duró 6 horas. So para ir a Trujillo is a good way to use para in your paragraph about going somewhere on vacation or on a trip. Okay, so that resource will be posted in the material section, this document, so that you can pull it up and edit it if you want. And if I can pull up if you're trying to figure out what the material section is, that's this section. You click this, and you will usually see the little update for this week, the current update, and then the materials are down here at the bottom. And this is where I have all your guides here for the assignments down here. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'm happy to help you. I hope you have a good weekend, good week, good weekend whenever you're watching this.